Execution. Good people of Epiton. Not long ago, I personally apprehended this traitor. This man is a known conspirator against our holy order. Today, I'll personally see the execution of Dinas, member of the Civil Suicide School Force. Let his death serve as an example to all those who undermine our glorious mission. Does the accused have any last words he'd like to say to the people?
Yeah, I got a real pinch of an itch on my neck. You wouldn't mind, you know.
That's how wasted bravado. No matter. I would have loved to play with you a little while longer, but with any luck, I will get to play with your little brother soon. And then I will reunite you with him in death.
No, I don't think you will.